Welcome to Rainbow Soul, part of the WLFE DB network, an explorative discussion about spirituality beyond mainstream religions. Hollis Taylor, author, psychic, astrologer, and alchemical mage, brings their non-binary perspective together with fellow drag king and trans man Lacrosse Ortiz, a Jewish Taino with spiritual background of exploration that has led him to an atheist perspective. Join these guys as they explore deep and difficult topics, all related to spirituality, offering a queer perspective, an exploration of interesting topics, and engaging guests to help explore conversations for the Rainbow Soul.
WLFE-DB Radio has LGBTQ shows like Across the Pond, Rainbow Soul, Everything Yet Nothing, and Inside the Drag Closet. Check out the schedule on WLFE-DB.com. You can even watch them on TV at WLFE-DB.com under LGBTQ Friends, right off our website. Again, it's WLFE-DB.com for your LGBTQ shows and more.
WLFE-DB.com, where talk radio is a whole lot better. Our shows are your shows, and that there makes for a great talk radio.
Hey, I'm Hollis Taylor, and I'm a non-binary person, and I call myself a divine androgen. Be like saying that you're a monk or a practitioner of magic or something like that. Maybe it depends on what path you walk. See, one of the things I noticed as I started to come out and started to identify as non-binary, I started to realize that there was no spiritual path for people like me. There were some things like indigenous people, but I don't want to culturally appropriate. I didn't grow up on a reservation. And I think Two-Spirit is great, and I want them to keep it. And I felt like I had to define my own path, because I didn't have a huge background in these things. And so I started to explore things. And, of course, some religions shame us, right? And then there's some religions that don't even include us, like Wicca. I went to many rituals, and never, not once, did they mention someone that was both or neither gender or god or goddess. Unless you asked, and then they would often have a goddess or something. But there was no language for it. And so as I started my own spiritual path, my own path of holistic learning, I learned that I really needed a spiritual path in order to be who I was. I felt like it was part of humanity. It was part of being a human. And I needed to be celebrated in my spiritual path. I needed to be seen, and I didn't want any of the shame. So that's not for me. That's theirs. And so as I started to unfold, I started to realize that I had my own path, and each one of us actually do. You do. Everybody does. Has their own spiritual path that they're to unlock. Your authenticity is in your heart, just like it was in mine. There were some things I had to go through to unlock those keys, to get closer to who I really was inside. Because all of us are divine conscious beings, and you have to work through some weird stuff sometimes, like cultural norms, and gender roles, and mental health and the crap your parents programmed in there. Sometimes we have to unfold that out. And when we do, we get to an authentic person when we move through those surface things. And when we find our authenticity, we can go deeper. We can love deeper. We can love ourselves deeper. We can love other people deeper. And we can enjoy our life fuller and more, and feel more complete by the time it comes time to, end, because we all die. None of us get out of alive. So just consider, as you start to identify and find your gender is not something that was given, that is not something that was assigned to you when you were born. As you start to realize your gender expression, no matter what it is, I'm talking to the drag queens, the drag kings, the gay guys, transgender people, non-binary people, gender-neutral people, all of us, we're all here for a reason. The divine sent us here. We're all here to define our own path. Make it what it is. Follow that part of you that doesn't follow the rules. The part of you that doesn't do what other people are doing. Because that part of you will lead you to the path you need to be on. And you will manifest the beautiful things that the world desperately needs. All of us we need you. We need you to step up and bring your most beautiful light to the world. And I hope that that's what this book does. That my book, Divine Androgen, A Sacred Path for Gender Variant People, and this channel will inspire you to find out who you are and open it up to the world and deliver it. As if we were all waiting for it, but we didn't know what we were waiting for exactly. Show us what that is. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. It's so good to see you, Lacrosse.
Same.
And welcome to everyone in the audience watching. Hey, Eric. It's so great to see you again, Eric. So glad to have you here. And welcome, Wendy. I'm glad you were moved by my little video there. And man, it's been beautiful doing this show.
Hi, Eric. I didn't want him to think I was ignoring. Hi.
He calls you Lacrosse.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, okay, it was a mistake. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here. And yes. I'm glad all of you are here today because we have a really fun, special topic that I think, Lacrosse, I've been speaking to you because Kaleidoscope Eyes kind of touches on it. It's the sacred story and the sacred, what comes out of our mouths is actually pretty sacred. Especially if you put a little intention behind it and a little bit of passion under there, a little fire under there. And I just think that there's some specialness. And I'm sure, your Taino, they probably have sacred storytellers, eh?
Oh my goodness, yes. We were actually, it's a big deal. There's this little legend we have where the way they would communicate was through the trees. They would speak to the trees, and the trees would carry the stories to the other side of the island. It's yeah. And we have actually a lot of storytelling in there, which my grandfather was a storyteller. So.
Do they do more vocal storytelling or acting it out or a mix?
We had what we called it. Well, there were jibaros, okay, and the jibaros were the country folk, and the way that they would get information or news were through stories. So they would have a town crier, but not really, and they would actually put it to music. So they would sing about what was happening that, whether not the news, but what was going on in the island, and they would sing it. And that's how they would tell the stories, was through song. And so it was a beautiful thing. And if you actually can listen to Jibaro music today, and it's very, it's it's stories. It's just all stories.
That's pretty awesome. And I love
Yeah.
the trees thing too. Well,
Yeah.
Wendy, I agree. Wendy said it's beautiful bowing to the trees and their stories. I totally
Yes.
agree, Wendy. Um, Welcome, Penny. It's good to see you, my friend. Sure miss you. Um, and I think the interesting thing is that you said I think you said your grandfather
Yes.
is a storyteller,
Yeah, it
and
was.
isn't or was
Yeah.
okay. And the interesting thing about that is that often the elders would deliver their wisdom through storytelling.
Right.
And I know for me, when I worked with elderly people, that was one of my favorite things. I'd be like, "Oh, well, just tell me a story,"
Right.
while I'm cleaning their room or giving them a bath or something. And often they would, if I asked, um, they would. And I found that I would learn a lot about them and that they would also usually deliver some wisdom in their story, whether they even meant to or not.
Right.
They just
Right.
kind of would.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool. I agree, Wendy. Story is so powerful. And that's very interesting, and I think everything that comes out of our mouths that there's all different types of storytellers today,
Yeah.
and, storytelling is making a sort of resurgence, if you will. It's sort of coming out of the almost the way drag did, where drag came out of the dark bar corners and stuff, and
Right. Right.
storytelling's coming from sort of over here in the corner out into, now on the radio with, like, Moth and stuff like that on NPR, and spoken word in general. I know that there was huge spoken word events in Harrisburg,
Yeah.
at some of the event places there. They would have people come out, and one of my favorite spoken word artists from Harrisburg is Ava Berg, and although she's passed, she was a powerful spoken word person.
Mm. Mm.
Powerful. She had some powerful stuff. So I'm just gonna say that for me, when I hear spoken word or really powerful story, I'm often moved. Like, I don't need all of the visuals really. I don't need all that. Sometimes it's nice to have it sung, like if it's in a song like you described lacrosse that your tribe did. Um, but also if you hear it, you can kind of feel your soul shift with the words, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
that's so I couldn't help but to pick one of the best storytellers I know, who
Right.
does that to me all the time when she tells me a story. Okay. So
Right.
I'm just gonna say I picked two people that would help us with this that I could think of that were available to talk today. And the first person that I asked was Bright Hawk.
Yeah.
Now come on out, Bright Hawk. Bright Hawk's been on the show before, but Bright Hawk, you have to tell us about who you are.
Okay, fair enough. Hi, guys. Good to be here again. I'm Bright Hawk. I've been a storyteller for a very long time, decades. We'll just leave it at that. And I believe we are all storytellers because I believe we all have a story to tell. I believe each one of us is unique and valuable. And part of how we find out what value you bring, what gift you have is by telling your story, telling our story. And so I have, I started off performing decades ago, and I would say, I don't know, somewhere about 15 years ago, people started asking me if I could teach storytelling. And I said, of course, I would love to help people understand how to tell a better story because we all know what a good story is.
Uh-oh. Something happened. I think they got kicked out. Oh boy. I guess that leaves me to tell a story in the meantime. Here, let me look through the comments. Okay. There was someone. Oh, it was Eric. How do I spell? Oh, okay. I was just gonna start. I'm like, okay. I guess I'm on.
Good job. Good job.
But
Way
I
to
guess
improvise.
I should answer the question now. How do you spell that lacrosse? And I think you were talking about. I was talking about the Hibaro music. The Jibaro music is spelled Jibaro. Jibaro. So the J is silent.
Even the sound of the word sounds like music.
Yeah.
It rolls off your tongue. It's beautiful. So storytelling it's all about loving words, isn't it? It's about not just knowing what to say, but knowing that our words are powerful, our words are medicine, our stories are medicine. So how do we help each other tell better stories and 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 be an inspiration to each other? So that's been a passion for I don't know, 10 or 15 years or so. I've been a storyteller for probably professionally for 30, I would say. It's starting to make me sound old. But the most important part is at a certain point, you want to publish your own stories, right? And I have. It's called The Dancing Hippo. Why do I have one set up here? And this we'll talk about more tonight. And it's beautifully, beautifully illustrated by our friend Amanda Moore. And our guest friend tonight is part of the community I met Amanda through. And, we're here to inspire each other. And so her art inspired me, my story, her art, match made in heaven. So if you want to know more about the Dancing Hippo, you can see and find more at brighthawkproductions.com. And I also have a YouTube channel. So that's just a little bit, that's just the storytelling part of me. I'm a musician. I'm Hollis's partner, the luckiest person in the world that way. I feel like we're a great team. And we're having a lot of fun launching our own podcasts and ongoing stories through a variety of mediums. So
travel stories.
Yeah.
The best thing about the Dancing Hippo, well, maybe not the best thing, but a really important thing, especially for this audience, is that they're gender neutral.
Yeah,
that
I like to make sure that gets heard.
There's no gender in there, and I think that's really important for kids to be able to see themselves in a story. As we're saying, stories are powerful, right? And that's really important. So, Bright Hawk, as you can see, I agree with Eric, like a fine wine, Bright Hawk. I agree. I think as people age, they actually become a better person, and I honor age.
I appreciate that.
So, and so look at this. Andrea saying they love you, and so you're welcome here, and
Thank
everybody
you.
loves you. And
better start blushing.
Now, let me just say this: as soon as I started talking to Bright Hawk about storytelling and spoken word, I was like, of course, I can't have my favorite spoken word artist on because she passed away. Her name is Ava Bird, or she's also known on YouTube as Hip Soul. Maybe I'll play one of her videos a little bit later. But then Bright Hawk was like, you know who would be really good? And I was like, and she was like, you should ask Travis. And I was like, whoa. Now, Travis, I met at an event at what could be seen as sort of a pagan-y type of flavored event. And he was like, he had powerful shit to say. And he had really cool stuff to say around a magic fire circle, which is like a thing where people bring poetry and stuff like that. And I was moved by some of the things that he said. So I just want to introduce you all to my friend, Travis Bowman. Welcome, Travis.
I want to give you a
Hey, how are y'all? How are y'all tonight? Thank you so much for having me on, Hollis. I really appreciate being invited.
Yeah.
Well, when I think of powerful medicine with words that can be a magic, like a web, like weaving a web of magic through words, you're the guy I thought of. So it's super great that you're here.
Tell us more about who you are, Travis.
Thank you. That's a tremendous honor, Bright Hawk. So I met Hollis and Bright Hawk through all-night fire circle rituals, and my background, I come from a very rural Kentucky, middle of nowhere. Left and went to West Point, the U.S. Military Academy, right after high school, and then thankfully was injured there before I could go to war. And since then, I've traveled and got my bachelor's degree from the Jack Kerouac School at Naropa University and my master's degree through the University of New Orleans. And when I first met Hollis and Brighthawk, I was teaching a class for these fire circles called Speak Your World. That was based around some of the thinking around language determining the shape of our reality and our perception. And this class was essentially, I think most teachers probably fall out this way, where we learn so much more than what we bring. But essentially, it was to help people access their words in a ritual container, to try and get out of our way, wire our tongue to our hearts, and bypass our brain, and let whatever is there emerge, and speak it into some of the beautiful silences that come between the music and the dancing. And so, but it's all linked to storytelling and telling the story of ourselves and our lives. So, yeah, that's, I guess, a brief, as brief as a writer gets, I guess, introduction, I guess.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Travis. I'm glad you're here. I'm
Thank
glad you accepted it. And I was like, hey, this is great, because what a time to be talking about this, because I'm looking at the world right now and we're spending a lot of time speaking our truth. All kinds of people from all kinds of perspectives. We are talking up a storm. And I'm going, look at the power of the word. And I mean, sometimes it can create, like, I don't want to talk to you anymore, right? Like, we're having that. We're having where we believe somebody or don't believe somebody anymore, or don't trust somebody anymore because of what they said. And we're also having the social media, which is empowering. Like, before social media, we just had Hollywood, which would empower certain people that they wanted to. And now all kinds of people are just coming out of the woodwork on social media. Even this show, for instance, may not get listed in something like Hollywood. But for certain, we still have a following of people that want to watch Rainbow Soul, because they want to hear what a non-binary or a trans person has to say, right? And maybe they enjoy our guests, and there's all kinds of reasons people watch. But what I'm saying is that people's voices are coming out. Our voices are sort of bubbling to the top in our world, whether we like it or not. It's here. And some of us, well, I was just saying to Lacrosse before the show, there's some people in the world that are clearly here to sort of fight or be a warrior in a way with their words. Some of them are a little bit more graceful about it than others.
Sure.
I appreciate the ones that have really thought about what they have to say, especially like if they do it in a sort of performance type of way, where we talk about like Black Lives Matter, or we have some sort of message to deliver. And we'll be doing a lot of that this month, the month of Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury, which is all about communication. And so that's why we're starting this off this way. And so we're going to really focus that on this month. And you guys are going to meet all kinds of people this month. And I thought that both Brighthawk and Travis have two different ways of approaching it. Brighthawk's definitely our storyteller, and Travis is like very much like poetry type stuff, like where words come out where you almost want to put them to music. Have you ever put your stuff to music yet, Travis?
I haven't. I've done. I've attempted a couple of thankfully unrecorded freestyle experiences with a few friends. But well, and it's an interesting thing to be seen as a spoken word artist. I um, I taught poetry and performed poetry for many years, and then um, I realized maybe a decade ago um, that I wasn't reading poetry, that it wasn't what was setting my soul on fire. Um, and I had determined to go back to school and get my graduate degree. And so I got into school with my poetry into graduate school. And then I applied to shift over to fiction because the stories and the shaping of stories is what has always contained, uh, the magic for me. And so it's nice to get that reminder of like, oh, that's right. I sometimes forget I did poetry for like a decade or more of my life, but um, it's powerful. It's powerful stuff, and I'm thankful I came from that direction to fiction.
Hmm. So, one of the things that I noticed about storytelling and even myself when I was writing my story in my book, Divine Androgyny, is that I came from I came from my soul. Like there was something in my soul that said, other people need to hear your story, Hollis. And what parts of your story really need to be heard? Like the trauma you survived, how you struggled with your the binary world and how that came through for you. Those are the kinds of things that are most important. So what happens to you guys, to you, Bright Hawk, and you, Travis, when you feel something, like, do you just feel something bubbling up inside of you because something else moved you, or do you feel like the story being called out of you? How does it come about? How do these creative expenditure, how do they come out for you?
Okay. This is questions, themes. So sometimes we're asked, whether in a class assignment or Moth has a public forum where they, show up to tell a story and be ready to tell a story on a certain theme, right? A headline, um, something triggered a feeling, an emotion that reminded you of an experience that you're like, I got to speak to that, man. I got to speak to that. And stories, I feel like, choose us as much as we choose them, right? Somebody else said that, not that's probably smarter than me, but it's a truism in the creative process. Whenever we're engaging in a creative process, when we really feel like something's happening, we feel greater than the sum of our parts, don't we? There's something moving through us that's like, I want to stay on this ride as long as I can and try and keep the little me, out of the way, right? So anytime I found that, for me, in my life, it had almost always to do something with performing. And I noticed, starting probably in high school. I was the graduation speaker at my high school. I was the graduation speaker at my college. Yeah. And I had to think really hard in those moments about what was my theme, what was my point. And it really comes down to, what is your intention? And this show is about spirituality, and we're always talking about intention. And that's what starts that's what kicks off a story. So I'll give you a brief example, and to make it easy, I'll use the dancing hippo. At a certain point, as a storyteller, I used to go to the children's ward at the Cambridge Hospital in Massachusetts. And every Thursday night, I would tell stories, play music, play my drum, and I never knew what group of kids I would have. I might have a child that I will see week after week, which you were like, whoa, this kid's in the hospital for a long time. Many times you'd only see that kid once. And this was a psych unit. It was a psych hospital. And I knew people there, which is why it was very easy for me to volunteer. It was across the street from my office. So Wednesday night, I'd be in the library just like trying to find material. Well, and at a certain point, you have to just create your own material because you can't find the story that you want to tell. And you realize it's your story. You have to write that story. And that's how the Dancing Hippo started. So I started thinking about, well, how do we help each other when we crash and burn? Everybody has a crash and burn, you hit the wall moment, and everybody has that moment where you feel broken inside. And I love, Travis, how you revealed ease quickly in your story, because now I want to know more about your story. But the best thing that happened was that you were hospitalized and injured and unable to go to war. Like, the breakdown is where the story almost always begins. And you can look at Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. You can understand the outline of how to build a story, but there is a calling that begins every story. There is a breakdown that happens, and from there, where do we go? So for me, in the Dancing Hippo has their moment, and it's like, oh, so here's an opportunity when you're down and out. Where's the wisdom come from? Usually starts to percolate from outside that gets you thinking about things you already knew about yourself, right? So let's reflect that. So the first visitor to the hippo is a honeybee that acknowledges life stings. It happens. And does it ever get better by obsessing about it? There's also honey in life. There's sweetness in life. And asks the question, what are you willing to be? And the answer comes back, I'm willing to be delightfully surprised. And that little tiny piece of wisdom felt to me like a gift to the universe about this is how you get through in life. Are you willing to be delightfully surprised? Come on. That sounds pretty good. Delightful surprise versus I'm going to hold on and never change. We know change is part of life. So how do we do it? Oh, by greeting it with a delightful surprise. And I'm going to stop there because I'm not going to tell the whole book in one little story. But questions, intention, and where's the breakdown? Because the breakdown is always the beginning. And what I always encourage people in the storytelling you do around the dinner table or at a dinner party or whatever, if you get lost in your story, ask questions. And the reason why I'm telling you this is, or I hope I didn't take too much time, or phrases that help your listener orientate back to, wow, that was some wisdom right there. Thanks. And then we're giving each other gifts with our presence. Yeah, pun intended. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Each moment is a gift, as is each one. Travis, go.
For me, I love writing. I've spent my whole life in the pursuit of stories and the creation of stories, and I am so resistant to actually writing them down. Basically a story gets told when it absolutely has to be told. As I've said to people, some friends a few times in certain circumstances, were like, there's this thing, and do I say something? And it's like, in the end, you have to say whatever you have to say to be at peace with yourself at the end of the day. And so the stories that I've told are the ones that just like, I may have resisted them many, many times, but they insist on coming out and finding a way through. And I think that, like, I don't know, there's I've been a part of a Magic Workers writing group for a little while, and one of the things that came up in the last session that we had was that stories can be sanctuaries for parts of ourself that are not accepted by the world, and I've witnessed that. Like when it came up in the group, I was stunned by it because I thought back to every single short story I've ever written, all the poems that I did. it was a twofold function, I think, as this sort of this spiritual path of being an artist, which is parts of the self that need a safe place to be, a home. And sometimes they're imaginary characters that refuse to go away, and sometimes they're literally like beings and selves that are inside of me. Um, and then and then the other side of that is that by giving that sanctuary to these parts of ourselves and opening it to others, because implicit in the story is the telling. We all have infinite stories inside of us, but when we decide we want to express it, it changes it completely. I'm not just relating events that occurred to you, even if I'm telling you something that actually happened. I need to create a story. I need to create a fiction about this thing that actually happened, so that maybe my listener or my reader can experience it in a way that mirrors how I did. That gives a little bit of that magic across. And so there then is is reaching across the gap of aloneness, of it's possible for us to feel as if we're alone, and what is a solipsism, kind of like creating all of this with our incredible brains and imagination. But every now and then we encounter something external, a story that seems to have come from inside of us, but someone else expressed it, and they expressed it through the lens of themselves. So it's the same story, but it's different. And for just a moment, we know that we're not alone. And if there's one person who hears a poem or reads that story who has that sensation, then I think any of us who create these stories can consider that a success. And so I think that's it. I think that as humans, we tell stories to survive, and we always have since the very beginning. And I think that specifically when it comes to queerness, that like there weren't any stories that were on the rack that fit, and we tried them, and nothing fit. And in a mirroring of society as we move towards postmodernism, the stories that were no longer obtain, and we have to create our own. And so we're literally creating stories to survive, and because we have to. And so it's an honor to be considered a storyteller and to take that on. And it's a reminder for me to do that more, because that's what the world needs, these stories, not just particularly mine, but all of us.
For sure. Where can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
You sound far away.
Oh, let me try this. Does that sound better?
Oh yeah, perfect.
Okay. So Lacrosse has a show called Kaleidoscope Eyes, and it's a storytelling show essentially, where queer people can come and tell their story. And I keep saying that it's super important because stories help other people. And even when I wrote my story, people have come back to me and been like, I read your story and it was so powerful, and you really helped me feel less alone. Especially because my story goes into the trauma and the binary world that we live in. And I think, Lacrosse, your show is special because of that, because of the story part of it, of people being able to tell their story, first of all, is a powerful thing. Because I know for me, when I was done writing my book, I was like, whoa, therapy for who? Them or me?
Right.
And, and I was like, oh, I guess it's like healing, because if you become a healer, you learn very quickly that when you heal someone else, you often get healing back in your own heart and your soul. It just kind of works that way. And that's kind of what happened, is that I gave my story. And then as a result, people came back to me and said, I had therapeutic effects and they had therapeutic effects. And I think, Lacrosse, that's what's happening on Kaleidoscope Eyes too. When people tell their story, they're having a therapeutic effect. And as more people hear the stories, they can take them in and have a therapeutic effect. And I think that's kind of what both of them, both Bright Hawk and Travis, are saying, is that in offering their story, they receive something in that, like a healing vibration or something comes back to them in a way. And so, Lacrosse, have you witnessed people as they're telling their story in Kaleidoscope Eyes? Have you witnessed them have like a therapeutic effect?
Absolutely. The one thing I love about the show is because every story is so unique and so individual and so personal and intimate. Because I think a lot of people tend to forget that stories are intimate. This is whether it's fictional or not. It's somebody is pulling a piece of themselves and sharing it. And when I see sometimes it's like by the end of the show, I'm mind blown and I'm like, whoa, that's some deep stuff, and at the same token, they're like, I actually forgot about half of that. Like, I didn't, when you go, of course, that after show, after it's done, they're like some of that I didn't even remember. And this brought this to light for me. And it's shown how far they've gone. So it's just therapeutic all around,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, and I just look at each story as medicine because somebody has to reach and feel that somebody.
And I think that's particularly important in the LGBTQ, in the queer community, because as queers tell our stories, if a person that was on the fence about accepting queer people was able to hear the story, or hear a spoken word piece, or something like that, they're able to maybe come to a deeper understanding of what it's like to be queer. And with understanding comes peace. And that's one thing I've come to understand, is that when people understand something, they're more likely to be at peace with it, even if they don't agree with it, even if they think there's something not right about it. They'll still have a sense of peace about it because they've at least come to some sort of understanding. And I have found that that's pretty much the power of storytelling, is that there's a sense of understanding, especially in the LGBTQIA people, when we tell our stories. And that's why it's super important to do, to speak your story. And that's why I think your show, Lacrosse Kaleidoscope Eyes, is really important in that way.
Thank you.
So,
I have a quote that I love that says, tell me a truth and I'll believe a fact and I'll we must try that again. Tell me a truth and I'll believe. Tell me a fact and I will learn. Tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever.
Sure.
Yeah. Andrea's saying it's nice that there's an outlet for everyone to tell their story and hear the story that could help them as well as you on your shows. Thank you, Andrea. I agree. Yeah. And I think that stories are really important, and we need to pay attention to what's coming out of our mouth. What do you guys, what Bright Hawk and Travis, what do you guys have to say about the power of your word? Like, when words come out of your mouth, how does that change the energy? I'm sure both of you have something to say.
Well, I mean, it's funny that, like teaching that course, I would find that people were surprised when I talked about how language shapes our reality. But like in, I use hippie as a general pronoun, so please, I hope no one's offended. But like in hippie communities that I've been in for the last 20 years or so, we talk about energy work all of the time. But like, there's just like, if we get into the physics of it, the fact that I can have a thought shape little bits of flesh inside my throat and blow wind across them, and an idea can come out and it can land in your mind, and if it's the right words, if it's the right idea, it can change your complete paradigm. I mean, this is epiphany. That's how it happens. Is just something unlocks, and who we were before dies, and a new configuration has to emerge. I mean, that's pretty overt energy work right there. Like I can massage or do Reiki or do a lot of things to help like heal. But if I could also just like land the right words at the right moment, then uh, then that's pretty powerful stuff, and it's fast acting, in some ways. And so I think that I think there's a power to that of it being of it the communication, the resonance, but also just generally vibrating the air with whatever it is that we are speaking. Like what you say impacts your surroundings. It just does, whether it's heard or it's not heard. Internal self-talk. I've managed to make it through many years without therapy, and I just started. So I've been particularly paying attention to my internal voice and my self-talk, and like sometimes those words slip out, and when they do, it resonates. And so I think being careful but free, like knowing the intention of our words before we speak. We might not have the words to express the idea across that gap, but knowing that like the goal is to communicate, is to pass something, not to attain a victory or find a retort. Sometimes I think, especially in relationships, we find ourselves having this like back and forth and suddenly coming to this realization of like, are we trying to reach a common ground, or are we trying to score points here? Are we talking about how we're talking? Like, and the more that we can orient ourselves towards like we're a team trying to figure out a solution to whatever we might be facing, the more likely we are to come to a place of peace. And so once again, our words influence our reality and our surroundings in tangible, direct ways. It's not just sort of energetics and that sort of stuff. It's real.
I definitely would echo that reality and that words carry vibration. Sorry, am I not? Words carry vibration, and vibration is magic and energy, right? So being mindful of that, and I think that's part of why I wanted you here, to have somebody who could speak with authority on the written word as well as the spoken word. I struggle with getting it down on paper and choosing the right words, but I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday I went to a memorial. Someone that at one time lived at this house, and she was only 27, and I I knew her partner, and I arrived early, and as soon as he saw me, and I wasn't sure how he would react to seeing me. It was one of those, it's been some years. Is it okay that I'm here? I'm pretty sure this is the right thing to do. As soon as he saw me, he came up and just collapsed in my arms, just sobbed, and understandable. It's his partner, his wife. And it was one of those moments where the words were right there. The right words were there because it just came from that other place, that place that we all know, that place of truth, the place of grace, the place that you will know what to say when you need to say it. And that was what the moment called for. And I was grateful that I could just literally channel in the moment exactly what he needed to hear. And part of what he needed to hear was, you need to hang on, buddy. Don't join her. It was, again, we've talked on this show many times about our young people dying. It was another suicide. It was, 27 years old. And there's nothing that when you arrive, there is nothing to say. You can't plan. What are you going to say? Forget it. It's about being present, about connecting. And I think this year has been a collective trauma for the entire world. the stories, the arts that will eventually come from this time, I'm sure, is amazing. And I think one of the things that's happening and the reason why there is such a popularity with podcasts is that people need to tell their stories. And the part that concerns me on the social media stuff is the connection, being able to really connect in that way that we all need as human beings. So as human beings, we need connection and we are meaning makers, and that makes us storytellers. So there's a lot of power in words. There's a lot to be said for using your words mindfully. And I like that you mentioned, you're being mindful of your own internal dialogue because eventually that will get reflected externally. So if we're clean here, we're usually better about being clean out
If I'm talking mean to myself, the likelihood that I'm going to talk mean to the people around me is higher, right?
here. Huge.
Yeah, and I definitely want to address this because as a trans person, I think almost all trans people go through this. And whether you're non-binary or gender fluid or trans doesn't really matter, like the whole umbrella, gender variant, I would say that almost all of us end up saying to ourselves, what's wrong with me? And I have heard it repeated from the younger generation that are trans, what's wrong with me? And whether it's about gender or if it's about like their mental health or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But we tend to have that word, that phrase, what's wrong with me? And I just want to say that, especially for gender variant people, by the way, there's nothing wrong with you. And change that question to maybe how can I see myself differently? And that was one of the biggest things that I changed, and I share in my book, and we talked about it last week, Lacrosse, is that our perspective of a gender variant person is there's nothing wrong with you. And I know our culture may think there is, but there actually isn't. That instead, try to change that language that you're actually sacred. And that's me and Lacrosse's message, I would say. Is that you're actually a sacred person as a gender variant person. So I know there's some gender variant people in the audience listening right now. So I just want you to, when you hear yourself saying that, that's coming from our culture. That's not from you. That's from our culture has imprinted that on you, and you just need to change the way you're at. Don't ask that. It's the wrong question. It's not the appropriate question to ask because there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect, just the way you are. If ask the stars, they'll tell you. Astrology will tell you that you are perfectly perfect just the way you are. And I when I was doing my big work in my 30s, I really had this gender crisis, I would call it. And yes, there were times that I wanted to die. There were times that I cut myself. There were times that I thought I might leave this world. Several times I tried in my teens and 20s. Um, and that was the thing that was the big piece that I turned, that I said, wait a minute, I think I might be seeing this all wrong, especially when indigenous elders, a Mayan indigenous elder, said to me, you are sacred. There's nothing wrong with you. You are sacred, just the way you are. And that language, hearing someone else say that, the power of those words, and realizing that I was repeating the message from our culture about transgender people. Don't repeat that message. Don't bring it out. There's nothing wrong with you. And I just keep telling transgender people that because I feel like it's got to be screamed louder than the people that are saying there is.
it seems more and more clear that Western culture, Western American mainstream culture is not a good touch point for sanity. Like, that is not the place to look for a clear view of the world and reality we're facing. And I'm glad that more and more people are realizing that.
So that leads me to a story. I just have to tell a little story on that one. So I believe that this was in the village of Somalia. It was after the war, and American Red Cross, Americans are trying to help, and they're trying to bring in therapists, and they're asking people about their experience, and people are crying and breaking down, and at a certain point, the Africans were like, "Stop! Your way is not our way. This is not helping us. You need to leave. We will take care of us. We will tell our stories around the fire. We will dance. We will sing. You're making us miserable. These aren't the stories we want to tell. We want to tell the stories of our ancestors and the stories of resilience of our tribe. And you're making us feel terrible, terrible, terrible. It was a terrible thing that happened, but we have to move on." And it was one of those gobsmack moments of people who think they're helping are often producing the opposite of their result that they're looking for. When I traveled to Africa, we were asked, okay, read this little story. Here's another story within a story. It was this little essay of once upon a time, there was a kingdom. And in this kingdom, there was a king. And the king lived in the castle, and the castle was in the tower, and the tower looked out over the kingdom. And there was a pond that had many, many lily pads and frogs. And the frogs would talk and talk all night long. So much so that the king said, "Oh, I can't take it anymore. I can't sleep at night. Kill all the frogs." Careful what problem you think you're solving. Within no time at all, the entire kingdom was overcome with flies. Everybody slapping themselves, absolutely going crazy and berserk. And they left because they couldn't, nobody could live in those conditions. So we were always asked, whenever you think you're solving a problem, whenever you're judging a situation that you think is oh so terrible, and we all know the Buddhist story of good and bad, careful which way you judge, because every time we solve something, we often create another series of problems. And it feels like that's the world that we're in right now. Social media has created more connection and less connection. It's created more opportunity to learn each other's story and less real, true, meaningful friendships among people. But is it? There's like this constant, the times in which we live. I feel like I got a little sidetracked. I apologize, but there you have it. Boom.
So that brings me to a point
of good.
What we were talking about. Actually, Sandy said our quilter needs a big kick in the ass. I agree. Oh, sorry, pants. That's what she said. She was being way more polite. Anyway, I personally think that our culture is missing storytelling. That somehow we lost it, but it's kind of coming back, like I said, through social media and stuff. So what do you two think? We have a couple minutes before the break. What do you think that there is a way to bring storytelling back? Why do we need to bring it back? Like storytelling and spoken word, how can we celebrate it better, and why?
I've personally come to really love the many different avenues and approaches that are available. A relatively mainstream example is Neil Gaiman's Sandman comic is being now made into a show after a lot of time. But before this, they did a radio show, which was actually on Audible, which was a download. Like I think something else that is an interesting thing that we're looking at is with the everyone having media at their fingertips and in their hands, and the ability for information to move across the world, is this accountability that is related to Black Lives Matter, and that, like, we're surveilled constantly. We are in a surveillance society, but that means that y'all are surveilled too. We've all got this, and we never underestimate the power of someone who is resource poor and time rich, which I think is an old 80s hacker kind of reference of, like, there are these massive, sort of like idea organisms that are there, and then also, Reddit and a bunch of GameStop people almost crashed the economy not too long ago. So we're learning, we're using it, and technology is unpredictable. It's a wild beast. And so by trying to pacify us by putting these personal locator devices, which is what the industry calls cell phones, PLDs, in everyone's hand, you have also given us the power of the storehouse of entire knowledge that we have digitized, accessible now. And that ideas are dangerous things, as any storyteller will tell you.
So the renaissance of storytelling, why is it important to bring it back? I Well, I guess I would start with where I began, which is I believe we all have stories to tell, and we owe it to each other to tell good stories. And um, I love seeing movements like Moth and the podcasting that's happening. Um, I think that we're, after there's a pandemic, after there's always a dark time, there's always a renaissance. So, frankly, I feel like we're the very beginning of seeing what's what could what, you know, these thoughts aren't formed, they're coming in the moment. So, I believe that the world that we all know, that we can all agree, is dramatically different than it was a year and a half ago, or whatever, year and change. We are not the same people. And I think as a result of families having to be home with each other, the level of communication face to face among families, I'm imagining it because I don't know. We've had tons of conversations. Things have slowed down so that people are having meaningful conversations again, and finding out it's really important to know each other's story, or to glean a different perspective. I We need everyone's perspective. We are a rainbow community, right? And if we start chopping out too many folks because they don't think the way we do, we end up in a really monochromatic world. And I think storytelling delivers us back to an incredibly rich tapestry. Think about the oldest, to me, one of the oldest magic, most ubiquitous spells we all know begins with once upon a time. And now you will suspend all critical thinking. You will enter that world of, doesn't matter if it's real or fiction, fantastic, dark, light, whatever. Once upon a time. And we go, because for how long has humanity been conditioned on that word alone, on that phrase alone? So I think we all have a deep desire to have meaning, to bring meaning, to find meaning, to connect with each other. And that's why I think it's coming back in spades. I think that the times that we're in, people are demanding authenticity. They don't want slick, they want real. And storytelling is real. You're the expert on your life. I think that's one of the things I love about travel and about my fire circle experiences, is that every time it's a new adventure. No trip is the same. No fire circle experience is the same. Each time is not a new opportunity for renewal, for rebirth, or, all the things that you are looking for at that time and whatever your intention is. And so I think that's why this program is important, and why we're all in this together is that we are in a renaissance of storytelling, and the importance of it's about the love. It's about this. It's about inspiring each other and getting through it together. That was literally my message to my friend yesterday, was like, this too will pass. This is going to change. And you're here for a reason, my friend. You are here for a reason. So please stick around. We all need to hear that sometimes.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thank you to both of you. And right now, by the way, to everybody watching the show, if you have a dream, or even you, Travis or Brighthawk, if you have a dream, type it in the chat so that Lacrosse can read it during the break, because we're about to take a little break. And make sure that you get your story in there, because get your dream in there so we can get it interpreted after the break. And I just want to say that when we come back, I think, Travis, do you have a poetry piece or two to share? And I think Brighthawk probably can come up with a story or two. So I would love to probably one story, but yeah, or you can have a story, Travis, whichever you want to do it. And when we come back after the break, after Lacrosse does his interpretation. Anyway, enjoy. We'll see you soon.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. We are the hosts of Meet the Author podcast, paranormal investigators and indie published authors. But the show is not about us.
Meet the Author podcast gives you an opportunity to meet and interact with indie published authors on a weekly basis right from your own home. Find out the story behind their stories. Have a chance to hear about their work and new releases on the horizon.
Join us as we engage in casual conversation with insightful guests every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch us live on Facebook, YouTube, or WLFE-DB TV.
Tune in to Kaleidoscope Eyes with your host, Transman Lacrosse Ortiz. Every week, we will be touching topics within the LGBTQIA plus community. We will also be having interviews with individuals within the community and allies. Journey with us as we share in their struggles and triumphs every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels. Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows. LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows. Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows. Search for your favorite shows like Where's My Sage, Inside the Drag Closet, Across the Pond, Everything Yet Nothing, Paratalk Radio, Step into the Paranormal, The Creepy Parlor, Just Cindy, and more. Now you won't miss an episode. Remember, follow Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Make sure you subscribe and follow your favorite WLFE-DB radio shows. You can find our shows where you listen to your favorite podcasts, like Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and more. WLFE-DB Radio is looking for podcasts to join our family. You don't have to fit any strict genre. We're a plethora of shows. If you're looking to jump on a growing network, then contact us at WLFEDBradio@gmail.com.
Wow, Amazon Music just got a whole lot better. Your favorite shows from WLFE-DB Radio can now be found there. Yes, we are on Amazon Music, found under podcasts. Download the app, find podcasts, and search all of your favorite shows. Shows like Where's My Sage, Across the Pond, Everything Yet Nothing, Skeptical Help Bar, The Creepy Parlor, Just Cindy, and much more. Now you don't have to miss an episode ever. Amazon Music is WLFE-DB Radiofied.
More from WLFE-DB Radio Network.
Hey. Welcome back. Welcome back. I seen someone posted a dream, Lacrosse.
Yes.
So I'm going to read it out loud just so other people just listening. I keep having a dream that I'm driving and run off the side of a bridge, and I can't get my kids out of the van. I've had it several times, and it's scary, as you can imagine. I imagine so, Andrea.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Lacrosse?
2 words stick out to me: driving and bridge. Okay. Now, when you think of driving, you're the one in charge. You're the one in control. You're the one you're driving to a destination. Okay. And your children are in it. And the fact that it goes off the bridge, like the bridge is since you're running off of it, it's like loss of control. Okay. When you boil it down, what I get from this dream is, okay, we don't come with a guidebook with parenting. There is no perfect parent. There is no, you do the best you can with what you have, and what I'm getting from this dream is that you feel like you're guiding them, but sometimes you feel you're inadequate, that you're not doing enough, or you're not giving enough. Hence the guilt comes in, and you start, because I know me, like I'm a very stern parent. And when I reprimand my children afterwards, I automatically feel guilty because I'm just like, did I just damage them? Did I just do something wrong? Like, come on. Now my kid's going to talk about this years to come around the table with the siblings and say what a shitty parent I am, But the truth is, you're doing a good job, and understand that that's what you feel. But your kids are always enduring. Your kids are always loving. Your kids, they have that unconditional love for you. So I guess it's just you're not causing any damage. It's understand it's your thing. And so, but once you see that smile from their face, it can all melt away and realize that you are doing the best you can with what you have. Yes, it's a big responsibility. It's our job to protect them. It's our job to guide them. It's our job to lead them and raise them. But you can't beat yourself up because you feel you're doing it. You know, you've run off the bridge a couple of times. We all run off the bridge. So that's pretty much what I'm getting from that. So don't be so hard on yourself.
Man, I'm just gonna say, being a parent is scary.
Yes, that in and of itself. I got 6. I'm terrified all the time. And that most of them are grown.
Exactly. So I feel like Andrea, I'm like looking at this going, Andrea, of course,
Yeah.
I totally agree with lacrosse. And it looks like Andrea says, oh my God, that's spot on.
Good.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that like there are times, um, like, like, I don't know, there's times that like you question your parenting or
Right.
something that
Right.
happens as a parent.
Every
And
parent does it.
in fact, Andrea, I'd say if you didn't, you're probably not a very good parent. So the fact that you do, this is what my stand-in mom is what I called her. This is what she would say to me when I would say, "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing." This is exactly what she would come back with: is the fact that you're questioning it tells me everything I need to know, which is that you are doing the best you can.
Right.
So, Andrea, good job.
Yep.
The fact that you're worried.
Yes.
Sandy said parenting definitely didn't come with a manual. I wish it did, but it
Yeah.
doesn't. Yeah, it totally doesn't. And what's right for one kid is not right for
I
another.
was literally just going to say your parenting skills fluctuate between each child because each child is so different. And what you could be firmer with one and then less, like more lenient with others because it's just all according to their personality. So,
I think the closest thing you could get to a manual is probably their astrology chart.
yeah.
Maybe their astrology chart.
Yeah. I just did all my kids. So,
Did you? Good job. Good job. If you ever want me to take a look across, I totally will. I do them
absolutely.
for my grandkids. Welcome, Paige. Welcome. I seen you earlier. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. We honor you. And yeah, I agree. Yeah, Andrea, you recognize you have more than one kid. It's easy to see. I have 2 grandchildren. I only have 1 kid, but I've co-raised a lot of other kids, and yeah, it's just every kid's different.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I seem to feel like more and more sensitive kids come in, and I think that you will screw up. I think as a parent, you will screw up, and that you're supposed to. Because then the kid will be like, I am never going to do that to my kid.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm sure you did that, lacrosse.
Oh
You really
yeah,
had
I told my mother. My mother. It's a terrible story, but I told my mother. I said I became the parent that I am because of you, and she got so happy. And I'm like, I love you, ma, but I learned what not to do. I love you, but no, I can't. I can't.
right.
So, not that she was horrible. I'm just saying,
Yeah, there's just even if there's just like 1 or 2 small things.
Right.
Uh, my mom was not a great person at all, and there's like I'm going to be the opposite of her, and
Right.
and I was. My son has come back to me and said, even considering everything you went through, mom, you were an excellent mom.
Right.
You were excellent,
Right.
and that's great to hear from your adult child.
Right.
Especially when you came from what I came from, which was a horrible parenting style. So yeah, so I think that's just the way it is. I think we're all supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So just by the way, if you screw something up, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Your kid's gonna make up for it. That's the generational trauma. That's what we call that. And it's their job to heal it. So your job to support them.
Right.
And I think even as a parent of an adult child, I think that has its own job.
Oh
So
yeah.
Well, and so today we are talking about storytelling and spoken word. And so we're going to bring our guests back, Bright Hawk, and um, we are going to we're going to hopefully hear, welcome back, Travis. And we're going to hopefully hear a story or some spoken word. We have a little bit of time left, so it doesn't matter who goes first. Um, if anyone has who wants to go first?
Well, I'm.
You want me to go first?
No, sure, if you want to.
All right. I'm ready.
Good.
I can.
Great.
You know, years of doing poetry performances, and oftentimes they're like, "You're going to lead off, okay?" So, you know, I'm comfortable with that. I forget what they call it. Like, if you're hosting the event, you know, you typically will throw out a poem to kind of like warm up the audience or something. So, I've grown accustomed. So, this first poem that I'm going to read is called "The Magic Word," and it's the poem that I would usually read at the beginning of the workshop that I would teach, because more than I think any poem that I ever have written, it kind of expresses how I feel about the whole swirl of it all. Magic word. I want to say something that makes flames dance over my hands. I want the waves from these cords of stretched flesh to fly out in ultraviolet form and paint a world for your eyes the way the sun does. So I'm thinking, if light could shoot from my mouth, I'd sing a canvas filled with greens like Georgia in the summer, reds like sunrise before Glastonbury rain, indigos and steel grays, blue and yellow beaches, oceans, waves wash the words to somewhere else, call mem. I want to speak trees. I want to call rain. I want the sounds from my mouth to splash in drops against your ears, to drip pictures in your mind, to flip it all inside out. Because your brain interprets the senses to create a reality. The senses cause your brain to interpret a reality that creates the senses. So you see, I hear, I feel, I taste, I smell. I think I hear an image calling. Silence. The room is filled with smoke. The desk is covered with scattered filters, a box of matches, packets of Golden Virginia hand-rolling tobacco, a radio silver, gray, and black reading track 12, and more silence. There's an emptied bottle of Grolsch, slowly refilling with cigarette butts. Ashes in the bottom, ashes on the curve leading up to the neck, ashes on the mouth and in the slow spreading circle around its base. There's a crystal for my nephew Hunter and the backpack I'll carry when I next see him. The backpack is brown canvas and it's getting slowly stained by travel. It's late, so I'll reach into my chest and use the breath there to rattle the air for one final thing. Imagine I could nail a sign in the sky for you. It swings there reading, "Beware these sounds called words. They can change the shape of anything. Every atom has a rhythm to its dance. Unite, unify, synchronize, and speak your world."
Wow.
Thank you.
See what I mean? How you feel your heart and your soul kind of shift a little bit because of what you just heard, right? Yeah, that happened for you, right, Lacrosse?
Oh yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
An incredibly tough act to follow. Part of what I challenge myself to do is never tell the same story exactly the same way twice, which is why I don't memorize. Most of my years of storytelling has been literally, might as well start there. Hey, there, I just got my hook. A story, let it come and let it go. Now, this is a little bit of a quote. This is a personal story. We're going to go two different directions right now. This first piece is in the importance of you telling your story. Brene Brown, a brilliant author and speaker, encourage you to get exposed to her work, says, if you do not tell your story, if you do not define your story, you will live forever outside of it, playing catch up to tell the story. So when we started our life on tour and we bought a white Ford van, we thought, aren't we slick? We look anonymous. We are a white Ford van, just like so many other white vans out there, and that will blend in wherever we go. And so the first year we were on tour, I think it was our first year. Yeah.
It was
Our first year on tour. And we had gone down to Costa Rica to do forest dance. And we came back and we had lined up a bunch of our programs, Let's Dance activities, where we go to nursing homes. I play music, tell stories. Hollis works with the elders, gives them love. We all dance together. It's an amazing love fest of energy. And we had just been working 3 shows sometimes a day, which is a lot. And we had done 14 shows in 2 weeks, I think, some crazy, or 12 days, some crazy number. And we were on our way to Southern Colorado, just south of Colorado Springs near Pueblo, so near the Colorado border. And we're headed out to a campsite, a primitive campsite that Hollis has discovered because Hollis is a brilliant scout and knows how to find us free camp spots in the most amazing of places. And we're driving down bumpy roads. You always got to go down a long, bumpy road. That's part of the adventure. And we're headed down this bumpy road, and we are going wicked slow because it's serious washboard, and it's just no fun going more than a few miles an hour. And there's this car on our butt for a really long time. And we're like, dude, go around. No problem. Just go around. What abs? And they never chose to go around. But at some point, they chose to turn around, and they weren't behind us after a while. We pull into our campsite. We are pretty whooped. We've just done a bunch of gigs, and we're going to start again tomorrow and do another bunch of gigs. And we're settling down. We're in our van. We have a really cool custom built van, and we have a nice little bed, and we're getting settled in. We have just literally settled in. I'm in my jammies, shorts, and a t-shirt, and Hollis is setting up the blinds so that you can't see. We have privacy. And just as they're finishing stretching out the blind, we hear, "Come out with your hands up. Do not put that blind up. Show your hands. Come out immediately." And I'm like, are they talking to us? And Hollis is like, oh, I think they are. And we peek out the driver's door, and it's a gauntlet of police. Beam, light, just all these lights in our face. You can't really tell how many things, who all's there, because there's so many lights. It's just flashing, blinding light. And we're like, oh my God. And so, of course, thank God, Hollis says, okay, I want you to keep repeating to yourself, we have done nothing wrong. We have done nothing wrong. They have made a mistake. They have made a mistake. We have done nothing wrong. So just keep saying that to yourself. And I'm like, oh my God. And you step out into the cold night air, and you're in nothing but a t-shirt and shorts, because you're not supposed to do anything but do what they tell you. And we're like, okay, and they want you to come all the way into them, and you see they've got rifles and guns pointed at you. You're going to do whatever the fuck they tell you to do. And you're standing there going, oh my God, I don't know who you think we are, but we have done nothing wrong. We are good people. We run a nonprofit called Let's Dance Activities. We've been visiting nursing homes doing good work. I don't know what you think this is. And they're like, well, and immediately people are coming out of other vehicles, SUVs and dogs and guns. And of course they want to search our van. And we're like, sure, go ahead. Is there anybody in there? No, there's nobody in the van. You can look. And I just finished painting a little mural with a rainbow and a unicorn and a Pegasus that says the magic never ends. And the cop comes out with a gun that I swear to God is bigger than Hollis. And they've quickly gone around the van and they're like, they're clearly like almost embarrassed. And the point of this story is that because we had no markings on the van, there had been an Amber Alert. And so, of course, they're looking for an unmarked white van and pulling over anybody they want. And they can do whatever they want because they have this thing called an Amber Alert. So if Hollis immediately says, well, a child has been taken, I have grandchildren, what's the situation? And we're looking at this situation and they tell us that a 3-year-old has been abducted. And I'm thinking, you think that this is appropriate? If a 3-year-old, you come at a 3-year-old with all this guns, all this shit? This is not a war. We, of course, Hollis was just like, just stay really calm. It was one of those times where I was so grateful that I had been coached. Just remember, you have done nothing wrong. And of course, they ran our plates on our driver's license and they realized that Bright Hawk Productions is a legitimate business. This is who we are. You're not the ones we're looking for. Go ahead with your evening. Of course, they don't apologize. We get back into the car. We're shaking like leaves. I've never been at gunpoint. I've never had guns pointed at me. I'm not a gun person. I've never held a gun. I've never shot a gun. So to have massive guns pointing at me and I'm like, oh my God. And the first thing we could think of was, do not let other people define you. We have to immediately get magnets, and we have them now on both sides of the van and the back. And it says, Let's Dance Activities, a unique music program for everyone. We're the good guys. And that was an experience about defining yourself. But I'll tell you the obvious other part of the story, that when this happened, it was probably 2018. And we both got back in the van after they had finally left. And we were, of course, shaking like leaves and thinking like, oh my goodness, if we were people of color, that would have been it. Forget it. We wouldn't even be here. It doesn't matter that we're innocent. All of that trigger happiness pointed at you can result in really terrible things. So I learned, define yourself. It's okay. Once you do, people know who you are, and you will know who they are based on how they're responding to you. So tell your story. Now, that's a heavy story. You want to have a lightweight one? How about the meaning of life? A quick, short meaning of life story. A story, let it come and let it go. Now, this is the story of once upon a time, a long time ago. In fact, it was the beginning of creation. Oh, yeah. Creator had created on the very first day the dog. And the dog was given the following instructions. Dog, I want you to greet everyone that passes by, to bark, to be human's best friend. I'll give you 20 years. And the dog says, "Ruff, ruff, 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 ruff. What? Ruff. 20 years of barking? That's a long time. Tell you what, I'll take 10 and I'll give you back 10. Creator agreed. Second day, the creator created the monkey. And the monkey was told the following instructions by the creator. I want you to be entertaining, to have a good time, do lots of jokes. And, well, I'll give you 20 years. And the monkey said, 20 years? That's a long time to be doing monkey jokes. Dog gave you back 10, and so will I. The creator said, okay, that's cool. On the next day, well, Creator created the human being. And the human being was told, your job will be to eat, to sleep, have a great time. I'll give you 20 years. What? Said the human. Only 20 years? Tell you what, I'll take my 20 years. I'll take the 40 years the cow gave you, and I'll take the 10 years the dog gave you, and the 10 years the monkey gave you. And the Creator said, okay. And this is why, my human friends, we spend the first 20 years of our life eating, sleeping, playing, having a great time. The next 40 years, working like the cow in the hot sun, moo. And the next 10 years, barking at everybody that passes by. And the last 10 years, doing monkey tricks for the grandchildren. The meaning of life has now been explained. A story, let it come and let it go.
I think that's one of my
great.
favorite stories.
That's great.
Never comes out the same way twice.
The meaning of life. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's such a quick, it's just hilarious to me.
Thanks everybody writing in the comments. I can't.
Oh, that was great.
The little bits that I've seen has been very sweet.
Thanks to you. Yeah, and I really appreciate the other story too, because I never know how to tell that story. Unless we're talking about like Black Lives Matter or something. I'm like,
Right.
oh, I have a story. And I do think that it made a difference that I went out first and not her, because, she might look white to you, but a lot of times when we were traveling, especially if she was dressed a little bit more casual, a little less hippie, as you would call it, Travis, right? A little less hippie. They would be like, is she Latina? Because she is mixed.
Yeah.
And since Bright Hawk
a little bit of everything.
They'd be like, American citizens, right? And stuff like that.
It's a good thing I don't open my mouth and come out with an accent that would just go, bing, hey man, do whatever, I don't know, inappropriate.
So what you talking about, man?
Exactly. Like, yeah, exactly. So, I just...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's important that I came out first, because the man they were looking for was of Latino descent or something, or Mexican. So I'm not sure what would have happened if she went out first. And I was like, I don't know, I'm going to go out first, though, because I'm the whitest person in this band right now. So I'm going to go out first. And that did occur to me. It did occur.
Yeah.
We were stopped multiple times in our southern tour. Anytime we were near the Mexican border, you never knew when Homeland Security was going to set up a stop. And just have some questions for you. And it's fine if you answer all their questions just exactly the way they want and expect. But I am always thinking of people who are other, that they make other, and how much they want to just bait you into, will you get irritated when I do very irritating things? Can I provoke you into being inappropriate so that I can take you in for whatever the hell they can trump up?
Yeah, it's true.
It's been, I think this last year of, especially the Black Lives Matter movement that happened, and of course, here, Elijah McClain was, oh my God, that story here from the Arvada police was horrible.
I'm glad she's now. So speaking of stories and how it changes the world, that's his mother.
Oh, there's a great
telling
example.
The story of her son to the police that are in training. So isn't that a beautiful, powerful way to use the story? So that's what she's doing. His mother is telling his story about him because he was completely innocent.
Did absolutely nothing wrong. Got accused of dancing weird, quote unquote, because he was listening to his iTunes and he was walking home.
And he was shot up with drugs, and killed him. So yeah, so it's kind of a sad story, and it's a really fucked up story. Sorry to just say it that way. And
Yeah,
I
it's
think
hard not
I
to.
think it's really powerful for a good way to deal with this um, inappropriate use of power.
Yeah.
So, Travis, do you have anything else for us today?
I could do another poem.
Well, we only have like 5 minutes left.
All right.
Like 5-10 minutes at the most.
Yeah, I this one is in my brain, but
You can do it.
I'm having trouble thinking of the title because I haven't done poetry in quite some time. But I'm pretty sure I can do the poem.
Go for it. Maybe the title will come to you at the end.
So I'm sitting in France, dancing my mind around revolution, and these patterns unfold in untold numbers of paths stretch in all directions. A crazy diamond shines trying to find the way. Some words I might say to make a change. Rearrange the world, mix fact into fiction in the peculiar diction of poets. Lay it out line after line like a businessman at night cutting his brain with cocaine to find the best way to that next extra dollar. We risk death, you know. Free spirits are unattached to the machine custom built for swatting, so learn to move quick, wanderer, and to disappear when you must, because you might get crushed under the burden of knowing. Ours is a guerrilla war, as always. Spray your words like graffiti on unsuspecting minds and move on. Speak truth and love like you're sent from above and just itching to resurrect someone. The ground we hold is peace, and it seems our lease is up, so please teach yourself and your children to smile and be kind, to shine and find beauty in this world. The greatest lie is the end, so I send words to the fight, trying to light the way down paths leading to love. Make no mistake, the war is now, and its greatest battles are being fought inside you. Revolutions, circles, spirals, turning on, lights, shine, new day now. Thank you.
Isn't that super appropriate? Thank you.
Yeah. Woo! Love your stuff.
That's really awesome. Well said. I like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that you talked about, I just really quickly want to say, in that, like, in stepping out and stepping, into the line of fire, I've been very thankful to be welcomed into my queer and trans community for many, many years as a cisgendered, straight presenting white man. And the fact that the people I love feel safe around me, when it's people like me who've made them to feel unsafe for most of their lives, is a tremendous honor to me. And I think that it's also a responsibility of if as that person, I want to step into the path. We talked at the beginning, we were talking about role-playing games and roles, and there was some meme or something that I encountered, maybe a Tumblr thread, and it was about tanking, which is to basically stand and draw the aggression of the enemies in a computer game. And if you're white, if you're male, if you present as straight, one of the best things that we can do for the people we love around us who don't fall into those categories is to tank, is to step into the path of those aggressions and microaggressions, because it's a way for us to use the privilege that we have. And I promise to continue doing so. And I'm thankful to be welcome and to serve in that role. So thank you for everything.
As a person of color, I say thank you. It's if we have 1 minute, when you were telling that story, it reminded me of when I went to Pennsylvania. I was leaving Pennsylvania to go to Texas, and my son was in the car, and they saw this tatted Latino driving this brand new car. And the hardest thing about that is I had told my wife, I said, and my wife, she's white, she's beautiful, amazing human being. I said, honey, when you get pulled over, you're just getting pulled over. When I get pulled over, I have to be scared. Is this the last time I'm going to see my wife and kids? And I ended up getting searched. I had to step in between the officer and my son because my son has terrible anxiety. So he started rocking and I had to sit him down. They searched my car. Okay. I thought I had weed in it, a little bit of weed, but I didn't. But with that being said, the only beautiful thing that ended up out of that was I got to see a cop search my car for weed that wasn't there for about almost half an hour. And that was great. So just saying, but it just knowing to go through that and be a person of color. It is terrifying. It's terrifying. So,
And I'm very aware of my white privilege. I don't always pass as straight, um, but I do pass as white, and I can kind of give off the straight energy just to get someone off my back. Um, Not always easy, but I can. And so and I realize that that's privilege. And some of the things that I'm privileged with, I like to make sure that I give a platform. And that's why we've had Indigenous leaders on this show. So, whatever you can do to help people of color or Indigenous people, lifting them up, giving them a foot up, being the shoulders they stand on, as my great friend Candy Brings Plenty described. Um, that's what it's all about. That's because really, in the end, we're all here together, and we're all just human beings. And there's definitely some craziness going on out there that makes people of color seem like lesser than or not equal. And even though you may think that way, not everyone does. Um, and so just be aware that that's definitely out there. I've witnessed it personally happen, because I've had people of color that are my friends. I've had them get accused of stealing things in a store when I know she didn't steal anything because we're friends. She just happened to come in 5 minutes after I did, you know? And, and then, of course, to see Bright Hawk get questioned if she's an American citizen and things like that. Um, and just to witness these little things as a white person is like, yeah, things ain't right. Things ain't even. Something ain't right here. So just keep that in mind, my friends. And in this last few minutes, first of all, I want to say thank you, Travis, and thank you, Bright Hawk.
yeah.
Both of you, beautiful storytellers, poet, and I appreciate your magic words. And lacrosse, keep doing what you're doing because this is important. Kaleidoscope Eyes is important. And right now, I've been shuffling my cards, just to give everybody a little glimpse into tarot. This is the Love is Love deck. It is the entire deck is done. Each card is done by a different LGBTQIA artist, and it's a collaborative vibration. That's what this whole deck is. So I want to honor its collaborative energy, one of my favorite types of energies. And I'm going to pull 3 cards for all of us today. And if you hear something in this that calls out to your soul, that speaks to who you are, well, then take it in because it was meant for you, my friend. And if for some reason you hear something that doesn't resonate with you, please just let it go. It's probably meant for somebody else anyway. Take what you like and leave the rest. And that's how I appreciate if you do that with this reading right now. The first card is about the past, like where we're coming from. And I think this is very interesting, the Empress. And the first thing that comes to mind when I look at this card, you can see it's a goddess, and she is standing, and sort of holding the whole earth within her, right? Like it's the whole earth. It's like the mother goddess, right? This is the Empress. And I just want to remind everyone of what happened to the earth in March and April and even June of 2020. Just want you to think about, if you don't know, I'm going to tell you, which is that animals started to be able to live again. Amazing things started to happen to the environment, the ocean, and all kinds of fascinating things around the planet Earth began to happen because humans were hiding inside from a virus. So I'm just going to point that out. Okay, that's what this is. This is a reminder of our connection to the planet Earth. Okay. And the right now is this beautiful being, is clearly queer and clearly dealing with emotional upheaval, right? With those 3 cups spilled in the front and the waters flowing through them. And they clearly are dealing with some emotional distress. And right now, I happen to know that a lot of us are dealing with emotional distress, emotional upset in our hearts and souls, whether it's with the world as it is, whether it's with the environment, whether it's with the virus and the other things that we're dealing with in our culture, or it's personal. Doesn't matter what it is, but that emotional upset, that's what this card is meant to point at. And this card is meant to tell you that your journey is part of the journey, that the emotions and stuff that you're having is actually part of the journey. And in fact, in fact, those emotions are holding you back from where you need to go. And until you work through those emotions, you won't get to where you need to. And that's what this is all about. This is the emotions and stuff that might be holding you back. You might just need to work on them. And that's what this is about. This is about seeing our thoughts and realizing that's where a lot of times that's where our emotions are coming from. They're coming from our thoughts, whether like we talked about earlier today about how if you think, if you're thinking not so nice thoughts about yourself, well, you're probably not going to feel so great about yourself as a result. Okay. And that's what this is all about. So this, this right here, all this entire reading is meant to be a little bit of a comforting warning and a way of saying, hey, you are connected to the earth. Remember where you came from. This is a journey. You are a human being, and that's what this is all about. So if you're feeling this way, if you're like this, or you're feeling pent up by your emotions and there's no answer to your problem, and a lot of times there isn't an answer. And I think all of us can speak to that there's no easy answer. Sometimes shit is just crappy, man. And it just sucks. And you look out at the world and you go, what the hell? The only answer I can give you is this. Go out and stare at a tree. Go get your feet dirty. Get your hands dirty. Watch an animal, watch a deer in the forest quietly. Listen to the birds chirp. Whatever you have to do to get in touch with nature, do it. Sit beneath a tree and listen to what it might have to say. According to Lacrosse's tribe, they have stories to tell you. And that has been my experience, that often I hit a story from a tree and it just kind of falls into me and suddenly I know the tree's story. So I'm just going to say that whoever you are, if you're struggling emotionally and stuff is holding you back, okay, and it's cutting into you and caging you, and it's changing the way you see the world, or maybe stopping you from engaging in the world, you can still engage in the world. Allow your emotions to flow and get in touch with Mother Nature, because Mother Nature, well, she's got all the answers. I assure you she does. As I don't, Lacrosse doesn't, Travis doesn't, Brighthawk doesn't, but Mother Nature, well, there does seem to be some answers out there. So if you're struggling emotionally, go outside, go be with nature, whatever that takes for you. And I think that's what that reading is all about. It's a gentle reminder for that. I know we've all found peace in nature. Right.
Very good. Very good.
Well, it has been a beautiful night of storytelling and beautiful stuff. And I just want to thank you all for coming. Thank you for being part. Thank you for being part of Rainbow Soul.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you. Appreciate you, Travis.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you, Bright Hawk and Lacrosse, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me co-host with you.
Oh man,
it's always a great show. It's always a great show.
I love doing this with you. I'm so honored to do this with you, and
Same.
I think it's so awesome that we get to do this together.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah, you are definitely a special human being, and I appreciate your perspective.
Oh, thank you.
And to all of our viewers, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you, Paige, for coming. We're so glad you were here tonight. And thank you, Sandy, for being here and being such a loyal viewer. And thank you to Eve. Thank you so much. Stories build collective knowledge and community from Eve. What a beautifully said, well said. And thank you, Andrea, for being here tonight. We're so glad everyone's been here. We appreciate our viewers and we appreciate all of you. So please share, please like, please follow, and catch us next week. Next week, we're going to be talking to Annie Finch about sacred writing. So until next week, love you.
Bye, everybody.
Be good to yourself.
Thank you for watching Rainbow Soul, part of the WLFE DB Network, a queer perspective on spirituality beyond religion. We appreciate you sharing the show on your timeline, follow us on social media of your choice, and join our Facebook group, Rainbow Soul. We want to hear from you. Share your topic ideas for Hollis and Lacrosse. Explore upcoming shows and interesting guests. The Rainbow Soul Facebook group, where we build community of questioning seekers. Rainbow Soul, where spirituality is our medicine.
Tune in to Kaleidoscope Eyes with your host, Transman Lacrosse Ortiz. Every week, we will be touching topics within the LGBTQIA plus community. We will also be having interviews with individuals within the community and allies. Journey with us as we share in their struggles and triumphs every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern.